Good day, and welcome to another episode of Overcast with Storm Rose. And we welcome Switch Jake back to our show with his expertise and experience and knowledge. He's going to talk about key holding and chastity today. I'm in South Africa, it's very cold. I've got my jacket on. Switch Jake is in Colorado, in Denver, and he says it's about 30 degrees Celsius there today.
It is very nice here today. How are you doing today, Storm Rose?
I'm doing fantastic. I've got my I've got my hot tea, and I'm talking to you. So why don't you tell us who you are and what you do and why you're so smart?
Well, uh, so as you said, I'm Switch Jake from Denver. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I've been going around the country and the world teaching a variety of different classes, including this very one that we're going to talk about today. And in the chastity realm, I have been both a key holder and I have been the one locked up. So I've had extensive experience in doing this, and I mean it's just one of my most favorite forms of play that you can possibly do. I only have three forms of play that I like, and this is one of them. Um,
Okay.
and so I very much enjoy it. Um, I have counseled a variety of couples through chastity play. I give one-on-one sessions where like we have two individuals who want to do it, so they're asking questions, they're trying to figure out how to structure the relationship. So I've been doing this for a while.
And if I remember correctly, in one of our previous episodes where we were talking about the future of BDSM, there was a futuristic device that we were touching on chastity there as well, right?
That's correct. Yes, the one we were specifically speaking of was the Fancy Steel Advanced belt that is controllable via the internet. It's controllable in person. Their original design has a fingerprint lock, so it's
Oh.
very much advanced.
So, how does one get started with chastity play?
Well, the first thing that any two couple or any group of people, it doesn't necessarily even have to be two people. I have had in cases where it's been multiple people, although that sounds like a nightmare to me for in a good way, in a good way. Um, the biggest thing that you want to the most important thing you need, obviously, is some form of device that can be used for chastity. I do know a handful of couples that do chastity play without devices. It's more of you are not to do these things. It's more mental chastity than it is physical
Let's show
chastity.
it to us. Please tell us what you just showed us.
So this is a internet connected chastity device called a Cellmate. You can purchase these online. Um, Full disclosure, they did have a issue that if you do a search for them, you'll see it, that they were supposedly compromised by hackers and they were extorting people they wouldn't let you out unless you paid them Bitcoin. Um, the
I love
company
it so much.
the company has supposedly fixed the issue. I have not seen an issue since, but just full disclosure, obviously there's always a concern when you connect anything to the internet that it can be compromised. So um, but having a chastity device is, this is for penises or men, whichever you want to refer to
Yes,
it
yes.
as.
People
um,
people who have penises.
yes.
Yes,
This will lock up a penis organ
yes,
versus a one that will lock up anything else, a vagina organ. It will
yes.
So obviously it's very important to get a device such as this. And one of the most important things that you're going to always want to do is you always want to make sure that you're getting something that's appropriate for whatever size you might be. In the case of a vagina belt, you definitely need, there's only one thing you can do in those cases. You have to just cover the hole. That's all you're doing. So you want to make sure that it's going to fit right. It's not going to chafe. It's not going to that it's going to properly reach around and be able to connect and fit properly. Because if you're going to wear this for an extended period, you don't want it to chafe. You don't want to get hurt wearing it.
But I've also heard people who are quite extreme masochists who wants to feel uncomfortable.
True. But in the same vein as, say, like a really, really tight corset, like moving organs around, uh, you definitely want to make sure that you can wear a tight chastity belt, that's fine, but you also don't want to, die because of it, like that it's hurting your organs or moving.
Or restricting your blood flow
Yes,
because your penis can fall off.
it can if it's restricted enough, and um,
Don't do that at home.
yeah. So in the case of penis chastity, you want to make sure that there's enough room for you to grow inside of it without being a serious issue. Um, it's not to say that some of the penis devices have small spikes inside to, shall we say, discourage growth. And of course,
Discouraged.
that's supposed to hurt. That's the whole point.
Yes.
But if you're just wearing it and it's hurting, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, some belts, for example, can start chafing your legs and things of that nature if you're not careful with that. So there's a lot of sizing questions and adjustments that need to go into before you get started with chastity.
But it's a good idea to just try it out. It's trial and error. If you don't know, if you've never been in a chastity cage, you also don't want to buy something that's too big.
Correct. I had a humorous experience with a too big device where I was just walking through a shopping center with my partner, and I wasn't trying. Somehow it just fell off and slid down my pant leg. And so in one smooth motion, I pick it up and put it in my pocket. Like, yeah, we're gonna have to use the smaller ring next time. Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely want to be very. You're going to be adjusting it, and I would highly recommend to anybody, if you decide that you enjoy this type of play, to get a custom one of some kind, fit to your measurements, because just having these are kind of one size fits most, and they work fairly
You're
effectively.
looking around there. Do you keep your cages at your desk usually?
I do, ironically.
Okay.
But then, for example, you can buy models. Here's another model, for example. This one is 3D printed. So
Yes,
if
I've
so
heard
and
of those.
and so this was made to exacting measurements for somebody that I was going to put in chastity. Um, it's a lot versus something like this where it's kind of, you've got three ring sizes, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So if someone wants to go with a 3D printed chastity cage, I'm going a bit off here, but I was always wondering, is it going to be too strong? If you're playing with a bratty person, do you know what I mean? Is it going to be strong enough? Can it not get loose easily? And number two, are those designs available online? Is it easy to find if they want to find the pattern to 3D print this thing at home? Or
Yep.
if you know someone with a 3D printer,
Yes. There are entire companies out there that will size. You input your sizes, and then, granted, and I completely understand it, that you then pay them like five US dollars or something of that nature, and then they will send you the data files you need to then just hit print
oh,
on your
okay,
printer.
okay,
Um, in this particular case, I paid someone else to print it for me, mostly because the only person I know who has a 3D printer is my sister, and that might be a little awkward to say, "Hey, could you print this for me?" And it's like, "Yeah, what
I'll
is
ask
it?"
you.
Like, uh,
But I mean, is that one comfortable for you? Are you happy with your 3D printed cage?
yeah, it's very effective. It works effectively. It's also short on purpose because I wanted to try a smaller one to see the experience versus the larger ones.
Yes.
Um, what I usually, though, recommend to most individuals is that start with the generic one, see if you like it, because at least in the case of penis chastity, the cages tend to be relatively inexpensive. We're talking between 30 and 50 US dollars, which isn't that
That's
much for just,
500 Rand. Yeah.
yeah, it's not tremendously expensive for to start. And then after that, you decide to get a different model. I personally have many styles of cages, but the one that I prefer the most is a belt style. It's an actual chastity belt, goes
I've
around
seen
my
those. Yeah.
waist and is very effective. And the reason that I think it's preferable, at least in the case of male and penis chastity, is that this just starts to pull downward the entire time. And while not uncomfortable, that's what causes it to slip off. That's what causes it to get uncomfortable. Versus a belt, you've got something pulling, you've got your waist supporting it, so there's very little weight on your penis. It's just
Yes.
very effective. Also, I think it looks a lot better too. It's just like it's big and intimidating, and versus this is just little and tiny, which that maybe that's what you're going for, but
Some of them are into that though. I've seen the sissy slaves use the very tiny little pink cages, um, especially for those who want to go for the small penis look and the humiliation and all of that. It seems to work for them. But what I want to know from you is, what does the key holder get out of this experience? I've seen some ads on FetLife. I've seen mistresses and tops and doms holding keys for people who are on the other side of the country as well. What's that about? What do they get out of it? You know?
so in the case of some of the professional key holders, the answer is very simple. That they get money out of it. There's no question about it. They also get a little bit of satisfaction, I assume. I have never done professional key holding where somebody's paying me. I do it more volunteer, I guess, if it's a better word. Um, so in those cases, you're paying a monthly fee. They're sending you photos with your key at various locations. The ones that I've tried have been like, hi, I'm at the strip club tonight, and here's your key. Ha ha ha! You can't enjoy this, or uh, and the idea is for certain individuals, they want to have somewhat of a teasing. They want dirty pictures. They want things of that nature. They want to feel uncomfortable in their cage or in their belt, whatever it might be the case. For the general population key holders, just like couples or individuals, what they really get out of it is an increased sense of attention from the person who's in chastity. If you're having I don't want to say a discipline problem, because we're all just human beings. We're not talking about children here. We're talking
I have a
about,
discipline problem.
oh well, okay. You'll definitely see, we're talking, yeah, play discipline, like you're bratty, and
Okay. All right.
that's
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Different. Yeah.
Um, because if you're having a problem in your relationship, chastity is not going to solve that problem for you. I promise you. And I've actually had to counsel a few couples who've said, as an example, I had a couple who, or a triad, where one of them was out constantly messing around, shall we say. And so the other two said, well, we're going to lock you in chastity so you don't go out and mess around and bring an STI into our relationship. And
Yeah.
okay, that might solve the problem, but that's not the problem that you need to be talking about. It's the fact that they're out doing that. This is not supposed to be like a form of punishment or a way to save your relationship. It's supposed to be fun.
So
And
let
then
me tell you. Oh, sorry, y'all carry on.
go ahead, go ahead.
It's just, I find it so interesting because, I mean, I was friends with, for lack of a better word, a vanilla married couple. I'm purely saying vanilla because um, they don't do all the things that we do. You know what I mean when I say that?
Sure.
It's not a judgment on their part. I still love them loads, but the man, for instance, there was a bit trouble with their sex life. He enjoyed watching porn. He wouldn't sleep with his wife. A lot of issues happened, and I kind of got the feel that in a way he wanted to be controlled, and that wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? And I suggested to her that he should get a cage. At that stage, I still had a sex toy shop, and she bought one. And I think it's a year later, she says he puts it's the whole thing in the morning before he goes to work. They put it on with pride. He wears it with pride. It's a whole ritual before he goes to work. She holds the key the whole day, and he can't wait to come home to her after work again to take it off. And it actually saved their marriage.
Mhm. Well, and that's a very good example of what chastity can do. Um, the issue in that particular case, I'll give another example, which I think is pretty clear cut. There was a young woman who approached me and said that she was worried that she lived with either two or three other male roommates, and she had a condition when she fell asleep, she would be asleep, like there's no waking her up. And in the morning, she was concerned that people were coming in and raping her at night. Uh,
Wow.
and so she said, "Well, could I get a chastity belt, to prevent them from raping me?" I'm like, "Well, you can, but that doesn't really solve the problem that people
That
are
you're getting hurt.
violating. Yeah, I mean, it'll probably stop that from happening, but at the same time, it's like we need to probably, talk about your roommates and maybe file charges, that kind of thing,
Well, file charges and perhaps look at alternative living arrangements. Get out of there as soon as possible if you're feeling unsafe.
or in door locks on the inside that are good, like just
Yeah.
lock your bedroom door. I mean, these are solutions to the problem, but it doesn't stop the overarching problem of people
Yes.
deciding that they can rape you at night.
Yeah,
Um,
no, exactly. So,
so go ahead.
and I mean, like in essence, in a relationship, you were talking about triads here. I was saying things about married couples. Um, how do you how do you structure chastity in the relationship? Is there supposed to be a certain dynamic for this to be proposed? Is it something that you need to approach with caution? Does it depend on the couple? How would you say it works?
So the best way to structure a chastity relationship, the easiest way, of course, is if you are already in a DS relationship where there is a power imbalance. I just counseled a couple a few days ago who were both switches, so they were the one partner who was going to be the key holder. She approached me and was concerned because she didn't want her relationship devolve, well, not devolving, but changing into a DS relationship because she had no desire to be locked up. And
Yeah.
it's like whenever he's locked up, he becomes so submissive. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point of this, that he's going to please you. The good thing about it, though, in most situations, is like I said earlier, you're going to get a lot more attention from the bottom, the person being locked up anyway. If there are house chores that need to be done, I'm not necessarily using this as an excuse to get your honeydew list completed. Like,
Why not?
like we need to get the house painted and whatnot. I mean, if that's what you want to do, fine. But usually it's more of we're all people first, and so like if something needs to get done, like the way that I suggest is that they use terms such as deer and honey as code word. They also had children, so that kind of complicated the issue a little bit. And it was like there's a difference between take out the trash, please, and take out the trash, dear. And by using the word dear, that was a stand-in for the word slave or whatever
Oh,
submissive
interesting.
term. So it was, hey, we need to take out the trash. Okay. Take out the trash, dear. Okay. Ooh, and then they're running out there to do it. Um, and then you also want to structure it in such a way that it's not that you're not doing absolutes, i.e., take out the trash and I will let you out of your cage. You always want to structure it as take out the trash and maybe I'll let you out of the cage, because if they start associating just even subconsciously, but usually pretty consciously, that if they do this action, they get let out, then they're going to do that action to get let out. And then if they don't, they'll be upset. Like, oh, you didn't let me out that time. Versus the maybe, it's like,
It's almost like a child mentality, like children's psychology, actually,
mhm.
because you're keeping the mystery. I could let you out if you do this. So, you know,
Yeah. And then you also keep the excitement because there's this, okay, I did that and you're not letting me out. What else can I do for you? What next? What next? And there's this constant build versus you didn't let me out. Now I'm upset. So yeah, it's even though we're all adults and it shouldn't necessarily be like that, if you pay X amount of dollars to someone, you're expecting something in return versus this, if playing the lottery where you may or may not. it may or may not win, but it's still exciting. So it's just
Yeah.
it's way to structure it.
So it's the mystery as well.
Hmm.
Which devices would you say is the best for chastity?
So
And I would like to know what you enjoy using most as well.
so personally, as I said earlier, I really do enjoy loving using the belt, simply because it's big and intimidating. It uh, being a bit of a photo loving to have my photo taken. I like how well it shows up on camera and it looks big and scary.
Is it one
Um,
of those shiny ones?
yeah,
Those chromy ones?
yeah, I can pull up a picture of it at some point or send you a picture of it if you'd like it.
Oh,
Um, the yeah, so it's big. For me. It's purple and big and shiny. It's very nice. Um, as far as devices that are best, for short term scene play, maybe a day or two at a time, cages, at least for penises, are probably the best option to start. Um, they're easy, they're cheap, and if you find you don't like them, then it's not that big of a deal. Versus a custom belt, which does have certain drawbacks. Obviously, it's custom to you and fits great, but if your weight is in question, if you're fluctuating, um, it can definitely be an issue because your waist size may be something right now, but a few months from now, if you're trying to lose weight, it might go down. Then you're going to have it resized, which I admit is a good problem to have, but it's not cheap to do.
yeah.
And in the vagina realm, you can purchase cheap models as well. The issue I've always run into those is that they tend to be from China, which isn't a big deal, but they tend to be designed for smaller Chinese women.
Yep.
So you start getting anyone larger than that, and then you're going to have to talk about, well, some of those even cheap ones you can request custom sizes, and they'll appeal to you. As an issue that's probably unique to me is that I teach chastity classes, and I tend to purchase devices to bring with me to those events so that people can try them out. But then I have to always preface at least the vagina models and say, hey, this only fits a small range of people. So, I'm looking for volunteers in this tiny little range versus
Yeah.
the penis devices, which generally will fit most, unless you're like gargantuan or something, then we might have a problem. But most, it seems to fit most.
Yeah.
Um,
And in your opinion, I don't know if this is a question like how long is a piece of string, but how long can someone remain in chastity?
So in any case, no matter what you have between your legs, it is entirely possible to go as long as you honestly want. There are a few caveats to that. The first big one is odor, because you're going to be usually urinating in this device. Even with a detachable shower head, which I highly recommend if you do not have one, if you're going to do chastity play, even with a detachable shower head, it is eventually going to start to have an odor about it because they simply can't get in there to clean it properly. And you definitely don't want to start squirting soap into that area and washing it out because you may not get all the soap and then you're going to get some UTIs and things of that nature, just or some irritation at the very least. So what I usually recommend is that every 3 days or so it is removed to be cleaned just to keep it sanitary and so it doesn't smell. Additionally, there have been studies with researchers at the South Pole, because it's a great place to test this, I guess, about isolation and sex drive. Um, they they found that basically if you're not exposed to any kind of sexual stimuli over a large course of time, your brain just shuts off that part.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it can be brought back to life, but in essence, if you weren't getting any to begin with, your brain goes, well, there's no point in getting aroused or anything of that nature. So what I usually recommend there is that about once a week they be taken out of their cage or belt and at the very least edged just a little bit, just to keep the juices flowing, just to keep the sex drive alive. Because the last thing you want is for it to come off and then just not in the mood anymore, for lack of a better word.
So they could actually once a week take the cage off for cleaning. How many times did you say they must clean it in a week?
I recommend it every 3 days. It'd be
Every
taken
three
off.
days. That works out to about once a week, doesn't it?
Twice a week, yeah.
Twice a week. So then you can also, I mean, take it off for cleaning and for a little edging and teasing and whatever, whatever, whatever. And then you put it back on again, and your little um, health routine is done, and you can get back into your cage and be a good boy
Correct.
or
Yeah. Or
whatever
girl
your
or
different
whatever.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do highly recommend it comes off, just because you want to make sure that if you're the key holder, that when you're done with the chastity and it's removed, that you can then use whatever they've got down there to
Yeah.
for your own pleasure, and also so that they maintain good health. In the case of penis chastity, there isn't a whole lot of concern. The only, as far as like damaging the penis. Now, if you are like, shall we say, porn star length, and you're being crammed into something like this, there could be a severe amount of discomfort, but there shouldn't be any serious damage. Obviously, if they feel extreme pain and there's not spikes or something like that, then we'll take it off and either get a larger size. Usually, when people are complaining about discomfort, it's just a matter of buying a larger size, um, or putting oil down there to kind of lubricate the space between your thigh and the
Like a
device.
coconut oil, something natural.
Yep. I've seen people use vegetable oil. Works just fine. Lubricant works okay. Usually a silicone-based lube versus a water-based lube. Water-based lube tends to evaporate and then get a little bit sticky, so then it kind of defeats the whole purpose, and you're constantly reapplying. Versus a silicone-based lube will not do that. It'll go away, but it won't leave any kind of sticky residue.
So besides for the cleaning and the edging and all of that, how long is the longest that you've worn your chastity?
So my official record is 8 months. Um,
Wow.
the uh, the irony of that is that my key holder didn't know they were my key holder. This is when I was very first starting, and so kind of as a silly story,
Oh, shame. You were so obedient.
I was in I was in college at the time, and I bought a chastity belt, which at the time was like most of my disposable income because I was in college. So, but I purchased one, and then I gave all of my friends. We would all exchange keys to our dorm rooms to so that we could get in if we locked ourselves out or something like that. Well, I just happened to put my chastity key on the dorm room key and gave it to a friend in case that I got locked out, and they did not know that that was what that was.
Oh, my
Um,
word.
Now, the drawback to that was that this is when I was first starting out, and I did not realize uh, I didn't know some of the things I know today. So, I mean, I had a detachable shower head, thankfully, but I had no way of taking it off every 3 days for cleaning. So, in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done that. There's a lot better options out there for long-term wearers and long-distance wearers, which we haven't even talked about, especially right now with COVID. I know some areas are opening up, some areas are locking down, but there's a variety of devices that you can purchase for that. For example, this is called a Chronovolt, and what this is it's an internet-connected lock. Uh, there's a there's a dome here that will lift off, and you can put your key inside, so you can see your key, but you can't get at it. Your chastity key holder, or anybody on the internet, if you really wanted to, can control the ability for this to unlock or not. It also has a battery, so you can actually set the timer, disconnect it from the PC, and then take it with you somewhere, and it'll unlock when it said it will. Um, you can also do weird stuff like make it
Awesome.
unlock based on the weather. Like
Wow.
if you really wanted to, like you're not getting out till it snows or something. I don't know if you really wanted to. Um,
That's amazing. But I mean, like if you have a very authentically obedient um, slave or chastity person, I mean, surely, like in my head, when you do like puppy training, I'm putting the treat down, but you're not allowed to touch it until I say so, on command. Like I would like that key to be readily available. You
Mhm.
you can look at it and you can touch it, but you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
I like
And
the feel of that, especially if it's long distance. I'm not going to really know whether you take it or not. Only you will know. But that's
mhm,
what you need to live with. And if this is the authentic feeling you want, you're not supposed to touch that key.
sure. And there's other ways of doing that for long distance, like they make plastic locks with serial numbers that are like zip ties. So you literally just put it in the locking mechanism, zip tie it shut,
Oh,
and if they break it, you'll know.
yes.
Um, in the case of say the Chronovault, which I showed a moment ago, the way that I've played with people with that, it's like, okay, I'm going to unlock your device, but you need to stay on webcam the entire time. I'm going to watch you clean it and whatnot, and then you're going to put it back on, and I'm going to seal it back in. But
Mm,
it's more for the fun. Obviously, at the end of the day, it is a lot about trust. Um, a lot of the cheap devices,
absolutely.
a lot of the cheap devices that I purchase, I know for a fact that the security is not exactly that high, and the reason I know that is because I pick locks for fun, and a lot of them take literally seconds for me to pop them open. So what's the point of a lock if I can just pop it open with my lock picking kit? Um, in the end, this is about trust. It's about having a good time, and if I'm breaking out of all my chastity devices, then what's the point? Like it's like why am I encouraging someone else to help me out here to do these things for me if I'm just going to break out of them and lie to them? So it's
I do
definitely.
like that though. I like that. I do like the feeling for you having a challenge and for your key holder to keep on giving you something stronger and see if you can get out of it. It's like a prison break type of challenge.
Mhm.
I do like it.
Well, and that's why I kind of liked this internet connected model because it has no keyhole for me to pick.
Yeah.
Not to say that I haven't tried to break into the electronic components. Um, it is just Bluetooth after all. Like I can do some. I did some sniffing on it, and which is a computer term, but I was looking to see what it did and how it worked. Similar to the fancy steel model as well, trying to look and see if there's a way to bypass it. I don't know about you personally. I don't enjoy a scene as much if I know that I can just escape. Uh,
Mm.
if I if I'm
If it's
just laying there,
clean.
it's like, well, I could just reach these cuffs. That's easy enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out. Um, so I do try to pick all my locks to see, just to make sure that I can't get out, or at least if it's difficult. And if I can get out, it's like, wow, that was disappointing. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap up. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for joining me again and doing this talk. Second of all, if anybody wants to sniff on a cock cage, you can do that as well. Doesn't have to be a computer thing,
mhm,
right?
that's true.
Just make sure you clean it. Um, and if anyone has questions, if you want to ask questions to Switch Jake, I'm going to have him on the show again. Um, if there's anything you want to know, he's well educated. Have a look at his profile on FetLife. He's got a few topics that he talks about. Send me any questions you want and we can discuss it on the show, right?
Of course. And if anyone is interested in getting cages, of course, feel free to reach out as well. I, I I don't have a lot of I have some deals that I've worked with companies. These aren't things that like I get paid for. These aren't referral codes or anything like that. But I have very personal relationships with a lot of different chastity vendors, and they've agreed to, like, yeah, yeah, we'll give you 5% off or something like that. Um,
Awesome.
so yeah, if you're interested, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk with anyone about it.
There we go. He's well connected. So contact him if you need cages. We actually have a shortage of that in South Africa. So it's very hard to get proper cages here. we always have to look at international websites for these things, but it's good to know that you can help us, and then we can contact you with our requirements. So thank you for joining me.
You're very
Until next
welcome. Thanks for
time,
having me.